Sounds good. All right.
All right, I guess I'll start.
So this is Christian.
Yes.
We'll put his address in the description. Tell
In the
everybody
link
your
in below
darkest
will
secret.
have my social security number.
Tell everybody the name of your first childhood pet
My first childhood pet.
and your mother's maiden name. Just turn towards him.
Model of your first vehicle.
And everything's going sinister. Get closer. Wired.
All right. I'll actually start off with something. What's your credit card?
All right.
So I believe that the Bible is completely taken out of what it's literally meaning. I think it should be taken more metaphorically than it should be literal. And your stance is?
That it depends on where you're looking at, because I believe the Old Testament is more so, yes, it's more story based, and you got all these people, whether it's Jonah in the whale, Moses, Abraham, and like all the things that they had went through and encountered with God. And but then you got the New Testament, where it's begins with the eyewitness testimonies of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they speak about what they witnessed and alongside following Jesus and stuff like that. So when you say metaphorically it's supposed to be taken, I believe you can metaphorically take more so from the Old Testament rather than the New Testament, because there's a lot of things to take away. That's why the Bible is like insanely written, because there's never been a book like it in the history. I mean, it's been written from thousands of years, but yet it all conjures together, and everything like just links up when you start piecing things together from the Old Testament, and then it starts adding together in the New Testament. But yeah, so
I guess actually I should have implied that. 100% I agree with that it's more of the Old Testament that should be taken more metaphorically than the New Testament being taken more literal. I believe that a person like Jesus actually could have existed. The reason I believe that is because I believe the theory of the Younger Dryas, where something catastrophic happened and most people were wiped out. And I think that the people who remained were the ones who were fortunate enough to be above or in a safe location from these great storms, which is referred to in Noah's Ark, is what I would think that religion is talking about when they talk about the Great Flood. I think it was just a catastrophic event.
So that's where the metaphorical stuff comes into play, you're saying?
I guess you could say that's part of it, yeah. But do you want to explain a little further on the Younger Dryas?
I guess what aspect of it, or
Well, actually, no. I guess we just know for a fact that the Ice Age has wiped out 92% of mammals or something like that. Like, that alone was responsible for, I'm sure, millions of deaths or billions of deaths. But I don't know. When I speak about it metaphorically, I think that the Old Testament is more of like God being the divine purity inside of you, and Eve, Adam, and all of them are just the life choices that you could have made. Like, Eve was represented by manipulation. Adam was a coward. Noah was somebody who was noble.
Noble
Cain.
enough. Noble enough.
Yeah. Well, Cain was bitter. Wait, no. Who was the one that
Cain
brought
was
his
the
best?
one who
Brought
murdered.
his best. Cain
Oh
murdered.
no,
So then-
Abel was, because Cain murdered him because of jealousy and stuff.
Yeah, so he could be represented as something like that.
Mhm.
That's what I think it's talking about metaphorically. But I will say, I also think that we shouldn't take the New Testament at face value neither. I think that the New Testament has been manipulated, omitted of passages, and intentionally have things put there that probably shouldn't be.
Yeah. So I'm going to touch back on, I just, as you were speaking, I thought about the metaphorical stuff, and you're looking into it, and that's what, you can't just read the Bible and just expect to understand it. Like, you literally have to read it multiple times over, and you can read it infinity times, and every single time you read it, something new will pop out to you, and you'll learn something new every single time, and it just keeps you asking questions and stuff like that. And that's what God wants from you, for you to seek a relationship, and if that's the reason you're reading the Bible. But looking at, so even in the Old Testament, they were prophesying that the Messiah would come, and they also said that he would speak in parables. And a parable is just a way to deliver a story through a message. So it's one of the most famous ones was the parable of what was it called? The parable of the sower. That there was it was pretty much about the faith, but he said there was a farmer that was sowing, and he threw some seeds along a path. He goes, some fell on the rocky path, and then some fell inside the bush with the thorns, and then some fell on the good soil. And Jesus later on went to describe what he meant by that, because the disciples pulled him aside, was like, hey, like, what did you mean by that? And he said, well, the seeds are like representatives of people's faiths. He said the people who fell on the rocky path were the people who heard the good message, but their faith did not grow deep enough, so when the sun came, they just were scorched. And then he said the people who the seeds that fell inside the thorny bush, when they sprouted, they had some faith, but they're worldly. They didn't have that trust and that faith in Jesus. So the worldly things suffocated them, because thorns will just grow around whatever they have and just suffocate it. So it just initially just killed the seeds and stuff. But then he said, but the ones who fell on the good path are the people who heard my message and decided to take it and to live your life by it. And so that's just what an example of a parable is. But when you're thinking about the metaphorical stuff, if the Bible was meant to be for face value, Jesus would have never came down and spoken parables himself. So you'd kind of be a fool if you wouldn't think that there was more hidden messages behind all these stories in the Old Testament. If Jesus was coming down here talking about in parables and not just telling people, because some of the parables he did not explain to the fullest, and then he would say, you seek and you will find, but part of that's just your own walk with God. And then I guess what else did you wrap up with?
I don't know, but I want to point something out, that I'm not trying to bash on religion whatsoever. I'm actually finding great joy in indulging my time into figuring out things of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But my skepticism naturally comes from not being able to trust them over the last 100 years. Something being 25 to 3,000 years old is very hard to trust when it's the winners that write the story. It's super hard to put all my faith into something that we're supposed to just accept at face value, because we'll put this up on the screen, but even historians and Judeo-Christians and, Jewish people, they themselves have said that most of the Old Testament should be taken, and I want to say some of them were also saying the New Testament, but I'm not sure on that, should be taken more metaphorically and are finding more purpose of it mystically than they are at face value. Like, I guess they see it as something internally within all of us rather than an actual existence of God himself. Because no one, even in all religion, has ever really seen God. They have descriptions of what they would say, like fiery feet and fiery eyes and stuff like that, but physically, feature-wise, they don't know what he looks like. Which I found interesting because I didn't know that. Because I thought that, I mean, you'll probably know this, but didn't Jesus take all of his disciples up on a mountain to go see God? Like, I thought they saw something that, like,
No, I think
stumped
what you're
them.
talking about,
Was him walking on the water?
no, was that Jesus walked up and he was. So, I might be wrong about this, but it was Peter and it was John.
Mm.
They were. Jesus walked up to a mountain and he was up there just by himself. And Peter and John were curious, like, where the heck is Jesus? I mean, they were obviously like trying to find him. So they follow him up this mountain that they knew he went up to. It's like, oh, he's right there. But then he's seen him talking to two people. And those two people just so happen to be Moses and Elijah, which
That's what we
Moses and
saw.
Elijah were people from the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses obviously was 2,000 years prior to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one who was given the Ten Commandments and whatnot. But I actually have a crazy thing to say about that. I'm pretty sure I have already told you. But, so, God is God, you know. The God who created this universe, he does not live within our time frame. And he does not live within our means of what we know. So, there's like a conspiracy that this would actually make sense. So, Moses obviously interacted with God. That's how he got the Ten Commandments. And the way he got it, he had went up to a mountain and spoke to God himself. And then God was like, here, these are the commandments I'm giving you, and take them down and have the people that you have freed and stuff like that, and tell them to live by these commandments. He said, okay. And then there was another instance that's around within the same years or whatever, but Elijah also, he had an interaction with God himself on the mountain. I'm not 100% familiar with the story of Elijah, so I'm not going to quote it, but he had that same interaction on a mountain. And people say that what if, because they talked about, you know, knowing that there would be a king to come, and Moses and Elijah, and they said, what if that moment that they were standing in that presence of Jesus, that they were also in their time. So Jesus was outside of their time, like he was within their time frame. I forgot what the word they used, but so it was Jesus is present, but he was also in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like he brought them, because he was like, you know, he's not bound by our time in our universe and stuff like that. So they say, like, what if he was talking to them, and that's how they actually truly knew that this God was real, and that there would be somebody to come, and they knew it was Jesus. But yeah, that was a story that I'm pretty sure you were talking about.
It was 100%. Well, something that's just so strange to me is, like, commandments to me are also born inherently by morality. And I know the difference between something that's good and the difference between what is wrong to do.
Paul describes it as your sinful nature that you're born with
Mm-hmm.
when he writes in the New Testament. And that's 100% more evidence of, for me, that there is good and that there is evil, because you know the difference. And when people, there's also always a question about, like, well, what happens to the people who don't even know, like those tribes out there that are not familiar.
Maybe.
Yeah, literally like that don't know.
Aztecs, Mayans, sacrificial things.
Well, like even like nowadays that don't even know that Jesus even existed. They're still living in, times where they still think of whatever God may be out there. But those people still know whether good and evil is, when they're doing something bad or whatever. But when you look into it, it's just normalized for them.
Well, don't you also have to accept Jesus?
The people in the Old Testament never did, and they went to heaven.
Yeah.
And when they talk, when people question about how people will be judged and stuff like that, everybody will be judged differently because everybody's got different circumstances, and they talk a lot about how just our God is. So when it comes to situations like that, I do not believe that God will ever look and take something away because you didn't have the means for it. Like the people that never heard about Jesus, he's not going to judge them exact same way that I would be judged because I have heard about Jesus. But I still think that they can get into heaven.
Mhm.
They don't talk about that in the Bible specifically, but when you put two and two together, I mean you're just looking at a just God, and it's you're trusting to it. Like I said, it all still goes back to good and evil, and
That's how the story starts.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Eve eats the apple of the tree to know between good and evil, and has Adam take a little nibble of that apple, and the boy gets caught with his pants down, literally,
Yeah.
because he realized he was naked, and then immediately blamed the woman. That's literally the first thing he
Well,
said.
actually, he blamed God.
Well, hold up. He did it twice. He was
Yeah.
a coward 2 times in a row because God asked him, "Did you eat upon the tree on which I asked you not to?" And his first words were, "The woman."
The woman that you gave me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he cursed them twice. And then, the start of the story is the end of our paradise because we were kicked out from it.
Yep. And here we are, born in our sinful flesh.
Well,
I mean, Jordan Peterson said it before. Historians and society regard Hitler as one of the most evil people in history, but it's realizing that Hitler technically lives within any single one of us. Any one of us holds the capacity to be held in an environment where we think things are okay to a certain point where they're not okay anymore.
Yep.
But when you're in that frenzy, it's very hard to distinguish between what's right and what's wrong. I would say that's more like, I don't know if the Bible talks about it in this nature, but I think it's more like animalistic nature that comes out of us versus like spiritual. Because there's a spiritual side of us, and then there's the physical flesh and bone that more so resembles animalistic nature that we see around us.
yeah.
Well, what that sounds like is that's exactly what Jesus calls it as, is your flesh. Because what your flesh desires are the things of this world. What your flesh desires is to go around and have sex with all these girls. What your flesh desires is to get drunk until the point where you don't remember the next day, or you don't remember that night, or do whatever. And Jesus calls you to deny your flesh, deny yourself, and to pick up your cross and follow him. And that's one of them, because Paul writes in the book of Romans, I believe, that he talks about how he cannot wait to be killed, but to die, because he hates living within his human flesh. Because what comes with his human flesh is, he talks about how he does things that he doesn't want to do, and then he does things that he doesn't want to do, but he does things that he doesn't want to do. So you're just stuck within this world and within this body, and we're just 100% vulnerable. And yeah, but then there's that spiritual side where once we try to connect it with God, that we're able to reach past further and become a better version of ourselves, which is what I believe that you believe in mostly, is that that's just, the Bible is just a reference book on how to reach past that point.
To be comfortable in your own skin at the
Yeah.
minimum. I mean, for kids, they can watch a superhero movie and know right away who's the hero and who's the villain and who they want to be like and who they don't want to be like. And something that I wanted to point out is it's interesting because when God even told Abraham to go out into the wilderness and his name will be known, he never promised him anything, because I believe it's because God knew that there were still choices to make. Like, he could have fought the wrong battle. Even Jesus knew that he had to fulfill his crucifixion.
Mm-hmm.
So I really just think it's more of like a way to push yourself to a better future, which is by making the right decisions and staying on the right path, because unfortunately we live in a time where it should be more obvious than ever, where society is straight up putting blinders on everybody and quite literally making them run into a matrix, because everything's that we work for is all based on trust in the first place, and that trust is in the wrong fucking hands, dude. Wrong hands. But I wanted to ask you, based on what you said, both of you, do you think monsters are made or born?
Made.
Why do you say that?
I may not be right in the aspect of every single monster, because perhaps maybe there is someone who's just born corrupt, but I believe monsters are made in the aspect of a lot of times we're molded by our environment without us realizing it. And I've said this to Vito before, but they've proven that if you start telling a kid that they have a stutter, their reading comprehension and speaking will become worse because they believe that they have a stutter. And then guess what? A lot of them, you can get them to develop a stutter.
Really?
And as soon as you get them to develop a stutter, you start putting them in stuttering comprehension classes and all this other stuff. And it further reinforces the child that they have a stuttering problem.
Because their environment.
Because their environment. As soon as they said the kid had a stutter, they now sort to place them in environments that reinforce the idea that you have a stutter from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Remember this, the person all the way at the end in the reading group that's trying to unlearn the stutter was never there for the stuff that tests for a stutter in the first place, which they said the kid had a stutter. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but my point is, they've also proven in the same flip of the coin, you can unteach stutters in certain children. Maybe not all. I don't know if that's possible or not. But the fact that you can do that either way, I think we're heavily moldable by our environment. Are the people that we surround ourselves with almost kind of nudge us into
the direction we're going.
Into the direction we're going. And think about someone with maybe schizophrenia. When you look up a YouTube video and you look up what does someone do when they have schizophrenia, and you see this person that looks completely crazy because you don't understand them, how many pills and treatments and all of these other things have they been through before you see them on the screen as schizophrenic?
Yep.
And let's not be shy here. These are mind-altering drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that part really interesting. But these are very heavily mind-altering drugs, and I think it's ultimate proof that to an extent your environment almost confirms what you are in life.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah. That makes sense. Especially
Don DeMarco.
So I was thinking more about, I had this conversation before about your broad medication, and then you're talking about monsters being born or made. I would say, I would believe that we're all born monsters, but it can be civilized and it can be tamed and stuff like that. But like you said, it can be brought out of you.
It can
But
be
anyways,
uncontrolled.
yeah. But I'm gonna kind of jump off of what you were talking about because I had that conversation with people. I don't believe that because people sometimes say, "Oh, people need medication because the chemicals in their brain."
I think I know where you're going with this.
Chemical
people say that-
imbalances.
Yeah, the chemical imbalances and stuff like that. That they have no choice. That's just how they are. Like people with depression, it's just how they are. You know, so they have no choice but to be on these pills because they're just chemically unbalanced in their brain or whatever they say is going on. And I had brought up the fact that I was like, because I don't think anybody should just be getting pills. I'm like, I'm not saying that depression is not a thing because people can definitely spiral and go down a super dark path and depression will be right by your side. But there are some people who are just unhappy because they look in the mirror. I mean, they're probably physically unfit. The way they eat is probably not the healthiest. The way they sleep probably isn't the healthiest. They don't do things that they like to do, and they're just unhappy with their everyday life. But congratulations, that's life. You're not depressed. You're just sad, and you just want to make it out.
You're sad that you don't have it easier.
Yeah.
That's probably what it comes down to. You're
Yeah.
sad that everyone else looks like they have it easier.
Yeah.
But they don't. That's looking at the guy with the nice car. What Jordan Peterson says that he says people say, they're looking at a guy with the nice car and he's got the hot chick next to him, but the girl actually suffering from a cocaine addiction and the guy just suffering from alcoholism or whatever he has said. But everybody's got their problems. I mean, nobody's in a better boat than anybody, whether they have a buttload of money or not a lot of money.
Well, it all comes down to whether admitting that you walked in the wrong door or down the wrong path or stay in the wrong room forever.
Being adamant that you picked the right one from the first jump.
Stubborn.
I like that you brought up the part about difficulty because this is something that I realized at a certain age about life. Just the fact of you being born and being conscious and getting to a certain age in life, let's say 20 years old, you're going to have plenty of bad days in your future. Just the fact that you're here and you have people that you love and things that you love, guess what? That means that you have bad days in your future. So why make all the days in between bad days too by being mad about things that really don't matter?
Yep.
You're going to lose people that you love, animals that you love, things that you love. It's not permanent. Nothing's permanent. And that's kind of why I think about older philosophers like, why can't I think of it? Marcus Aurelius. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of like, why are you mad when you never truly own anything to begin with?
What are you
It's just
scared
your
to
turn.
lose if you never owned anything?
Yeah, no.
It's almost like the ultimate freedom of being able to let go of a lot of things. And this is actually where I agree with religion on a lot of stuff is you ain't got no reason to be sad.
Yeah, literally.
And
you
we
don't.
also,
You literally don't because it's a choice. And I think
live-
religion kind of shows you that it's a choice.
we live in the U.S. the 1% of top earners for like nation, which should tell you a lot considering how many committed suicides there are every single year just by us. Because wouldn't you expect us to still be happy compared to the people that aren't living in the 1% who aren't committing suicide and it's unheard of for them to do so in places like Africa and stuff like that? I can't see them truthfully thinking, dude, I'm not catching another tiger. I'm just gonna.
Life's gotta go
I'm
on.
gonna take this spear and go through my chest.
That's actually crazy you say that, and I
That's
don't want to get
fast.
sidetracked, but is it because they're
Don't
more
wanna catch
survival
another
focused to begin with, and they never knew what it was like to be lavish and never have to worry about where your next meal's coming from or anything like that? Like, what if because you know where your next meal is coming from, because you know your bills are going to be paid, because you know your car is going to work when you go to start it, what difficulty do you have?
Yeah, I think
Difficulty is required.
what
For
it
growth.
is required
For growth.
for a lot of things.
Give a plant everything it needs and it will grow. Put it in some slight shade and it will grow like crazy because now it's trying to outcompete the plant next to it.
Really?
A lot of plants will do that. They grow better when they're trying to compete next to other plants.
I mean, that's just what. I mean, even if you look at humans, that's the exact same way.
It is 100% true, and I think we should kind of maybe bring it a little bit into modern day society. Look at what we did for women. We took the goalpost away and made it as easy as possible for them. And now what? Over 50% of women are on antidepressants.
50% of them aren't treated.
It's like 54% of them are on antidepressants or some sort of anti-anxiety medication. If we really have it so good and so great, then why are all these women in despair?
I think a big thing that's lacking is confidence. I feel like I struggled a lot with confidence. I had to put myself through quite a bit of mistakes in order to learn the things that I've now been able to accomplish. But a big thing to point out is that parents have been stripped from home and now put into the workforce. So who's there to teach the kid confidence when they're too busy trying to learn to be the best obedient servants that they possibly can?
That's facts.
Yeah, it's tough because
they're learning how to turn into the rug, basically, to be walked over, to be the ultimate nice person, and that's a problem. If you're an ultimate nice person, then you have nothing to negotiate with. And this is why I listen to Andrew Tate, because there are certain gems in the things that he says, and he says a certain one which goes like this: if you have nothing to offer, then nice is the only cards that you have to play. Not saying that you necessarily have to be mean, but being nice for no reason at all to everyone and everybody, I don't think that's a smart move, especially in today's world, because you will be taken advantage of. And I think, honestly, you have to second guess people who are ultimate nice to everyone and anything for all reasons, because perhaps they don't have any other cards to play.
Yeah. Do you
I don't
think
know.
that religion should be looked at more as psychological rather than scientific, considering science wasn't necessarily a thing at the time as well? That I'm told of? Well,
I guess in the New Testament, so this is what I have in my head. Followers of Christianity follow the New Testament in the story of Jesus. Do they still believe that the earth was created 7,000 years ago? Or I guess I don't know the exact date, but I guess, do they still believe that there are certain parts of science that are true, like the earth could be billions of years old? And
I wouldn't say. I mean,
that's a good
seeing
point.
the people that historically dig inside that stuff. No, the world is not
Billions of years
made
old.
billions of years ago. It has not been here that long.
How old is Earth supposed to be? Like 30.4 billion?
what's up?
How old is Earth? Like 3.4 billion? And
Like,
then
I
the
think 3 or
universe-
4 billion years old, they say.
The universe is like 13.8, they say.
Yeah.
How do you even measure that?
They say they measured it by, I believe, how far the light got out
Well, if
from the center.
space is ever expanding, though, how are you supposed to measure something that's constantly in motion? Not only us being in motion, but everything else.
We've also seen a lot of videos where they explain it as like a thing that can move and pull itself, and it can move around in its own, like it has confined edges, but it can move around in another area. I honestly don't know if we're ever meant to know that or even understand it.
Do you think that anyone could actually comprehend it?
That's,
Probably
I think,
not.
what we're using computers for.
Oh.
I look at humans as like the ultimate pattern recognition machines, and because I believe pattern recognition is a main part of why we even have consciousness in the first place, is because we have memories. And think about it like this. You maybe thought it was fun hitting people when you were a kid until you got hit back, and then you remember what it felt like to get hit, and then you're like, maybe I don't want to hit that person next time. Your memory, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. Your memory is the one thing that allows us to even think about religion, I guess, or consciousness, or what you're going to do in the future to be a better person, any of those things.
Mhm.
You have to have memory of all the bad things that happen to you, all the good things that happen to you, and guess what? Now you have a chessboard you're starting to lay down pieces and you're starting to put the puzzle pieces together. However you want to look at it, you can start to pattern together life and go, oh my gosh, there actually is a method to success other than random chance, which is how we would look at nature. Is the tiger going to catch the gazelle? I don't know. Maybe the tiger didn't see a rock in the grass and it trips and rolls and the gazelle gets away. Nature comes down, I believe, heavily to random chance, and I believe religion and memory is the way that humans have found a way to best get past the random odds of nature.
Do you think that it's possible that if... Oh, actually, let me point something else out. What before all of that, what you just said, one of the last things I point out is what all we're being, at least this is what we're being told. The reason I say that is because it is important to know that there are certain people, like Ashkenazi Jews, whose family tree has been very condensed for a long time. For many, like, it's like, how long is it? I want to say like 1,000 years.
I believe like 1,000 or 1,600 years, something like that.
Like for a very long time amongst like 200 people. Like these people...
200 people was the bottlenecking of like the start of their bloodline today.
Yeah, and now think of how many people it could take to be from here to George Washington. 3 people living to the age of 90. 200 people? Look how many kids our mom had. That's a lot of kids and a lot of people.
At that point, it's hundreds of thousands of people.
Hundreds of thousands. And these people, I would like to think that we didn't lose history. We are lost in it. I think that all this history is being controlled by somebody else, and the one that we're being fed is bullshit. Not all of it, but I think that there are certain elements of it that they have purposely kept out and that purposely put in there to throw someone down a rabbit hole. And I don't think it's any coincidence that people made movies back in the day, even Disney, and Disney was killed by, well, he wrote Alice in Wonderland. It was showing you how deep the rabbit hole could go. Yeah. Same with Pinocchio. It's structurally built to show you that you need to get your strings, not rely on your strings, and take matters into your own hands and not be a disobedient little boy or something like that. But I probably should have said Sleeping Beauty. That's a better one, I know.
I mean, I think you have to bring up religion in this, though. If you want to go by the historical timeline, I've asked Vito this before. If two people were to come together and neither of them knew language, how would they start a language? Like, okay, you can point at a stick and say some sounds and then remember what a stick is. But how do you convey something such as the thoughts of a single passage of the Bible? How do you get to a point where two people now in the world today, billions of people, can just utter sounds and get to a point where they understand on a deep emotional level what they just heard? Like, how long would it take people to get building sentences and the structure? Like, you gotta realize, I realized this during high school Spanish class. Language is so freaking structured. Like, it's not just words. There's actually a reason why they did the things that they did, because it's all just like it's like a huge Excel sheet of all the possible different things that you could say and what they could mean. Yeah. And they came up with the words in like, okay, this root word will tie to this type of meaning, and then any type of word that has something to do with this, it can have part of... Like, it's crazy when you think about it. And now look at how many thousands of languages are in the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How we're at the point so far down the timeline that we can't see the part before humans had language or humans were coming up with languages. And then let's think about this. Their languages were probably primitive. They probably didn't have ways to convey certain feelings or emotions. And this is something interesting to think about. If you can't convey certain feelings or emotions to somebody else, then you can't be fully understood. And if you can't be fully understood, then you're misunderstood. Misunderstanding leads to fear. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to violence. That's the chain of events that we're talking about. The only way that you can get to not hurting someone who you don't understand is sitting down and talking until a point that you do understand them. Maybe you still do want to kill them after, but my point is that on sight, words are the only way that you can get around that. Animals kill each other on sight. I don't know. Language is very interesting to me because I don't think we're really told the full story on it. And in order to have language, or in order to have religion, you have to have languages. And these are very like advanced and structured languages that had to have been around for a long time, or someone gave them to us.
Yeah. Well, you'd need to know the language before you could even teach the language. You would have to have a quantum physics teaching in order for it to be taught. Like, you need to have an action before you can have a reaction.
Yep. And that's where I don't understand how language ties into the historical timeline of the Bible, because in order for the Bible to even be written the first time, they would have had to have very advanced language.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, unless the Bible somewhere says that humans were given language, or it's implied that they were given language by some sort of God.
Well, they do talk about language and how it all got split up in the Bible.
They do?
I kind of want to hear it. I don't know it.
Well, because everybody, I believe this was before the time of Noah. But this is when God, everybody, God had his creation of this world, and everybody was, it was after Noah. But anyways, everybody was trying to overthrow God. Everybody was going back to trying to do everything that was going on in nowadays. Everybody's just trying to live for themselves and just indulging in everything sinful. And God just seen his creation and was just terribly upset about it and was like, I regret I even did this. But these people decided that they wanted to build a tower so that they could go, a tower so high so that they could go into heaven and overthrow God himself.
Is this the Tower of Babel?
Yeah, the Tower of Babylon. So God seen that, and then he was pissed about it. So he said that he was going to disperse everybody and put them in different regions of the world. And so that's how people got split up, and that's how language got built and everything else and stuff like that. So from that point on, everything was just split up.
See, that makes me think that it could have all been a singular language, in that over time, if you separate groups, they can come up with their own dialects and change the language to a point where it's a completely different language when they've been separated for a long period of time. It's already, like, it happens in every country pretty much. Even in America, you can go to the Northeast and hear someone that sounds completely different than someone down in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even places in, like, Louisiana where they have almost their own dialect. Creole. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
I've heard about
it's
it.
more of a French thing, but not anymore. It's no longer French, I don't think, but
No, I definitely see that. I mean, once you start straying away and stuff, I mean, like you said, language can easily evolve. Like we have, like even in the state of Illinois, and then you go to the state of, we'll say, Iowa or whatever, you will hear them talk and you'll hear them say things like, what the heck are you talking about? Or we'll say things and they have no idea what the heck we're talking about.
and they're right next to us on a map.
Yeah, so, I mean, just imagine if you go even further away, that things are they just get completely changed, and it gets super easy for language to evolve and turn into something new.
Yeah.
But
And I feel like language always is ever expanding because of everything that we made. I mean, when God split them amongst each other, it's not like he also supplied them with some Walmarts, all these Targets and whatever. In order to get to the point of even doing the construction, think of the amount of words you'd have to come up for that category. Now we have to talk about science. Think of how many things. How long did it take them to even think of the word quantum physics or think of that as being a career path or something? Like, there is no shy of words when it comes to development, and it's all based on our progression through history itself. Because
That's a good point.
I was thinking of it. I was like, man, it's kind of funny that people say stupid shit like dead ass, on God, no cap. I kind of look at humans sometimes as parrots, just hearing shit. So, like,
Yeah.
you'll ask women, oh, do you want a kid? And they'll say stupid shit like, into this world? Who told you to say that? I've heard every fucking female say that. They don't even understand why they'd say that, is why it pisses me off, because it's like,
In this world where I'm well fed, my bills are paid, I have a full-time job, I have a college education, what world are you expecting to have kids in then?
all right.
Because look, go roll back 100 years and look at the world that they had kids in, and they had
Oh,
10
yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
15 of them.
The boomers, the baby boomers. Think of all the difficult times they were going through, and they still had every intention. But those were also different times where our grandpas and grandmas were having kids at 18 and doing their due diligence on keeping the population rising. And unfortunately, we're selling these dreams to women to choose the career over their own families, and that's also can full 360 around back to the lack of confidence inside of the kids, because they have sold this illusion to women to, hey, you could go to college because you don't need a man. They're trying to make us more equal, and you've said it this way before. They have made society gender transsexual because the women are becoming like men, and they're getting operations for it, and men are becoming more like women, not so confident, which is the biggest thing you should have as a man. Because we can look at the neurochemistry of something like lobsters, because their immune system operates on serotonin levels just like ours. And when lobsters are competing for the mate, the bigger lobster and the smaller lobster will face off like little doofuses, and basically when the bigger lobster wins, he'll get the nice place and he'll get the girl, but the loser, he still has to go through some type of emotion, and the chemical that's induced when that kind of stuff happens is serotonin. So that lobster is going to be fed good serotonin and feel on top of the world. You've lost a football game. It doesn't feel so good. You still get that serotonin. So your serotonin levels are going to be completely down. It should be a wave like this. And most people's are just sometimes never even off the ground. They just start
Flatline.
below zero. Yeah.
No.
And that's actually something I wanted to say a little bit earlier about chemicals in our brain. I don't believe life is experienced just through the chemicals floating in through our body. I do believe that there's a spiritual aspect to it. But I do believe that the chemicals within our body do have an influence on our day-to-day life to an extent. Like, they can, I guess, draw patterns. Like, oh, if a person has this, they might tend to be this way. But that doesn't mean that they have to
It
be
doesn't
that way.
define you.
That's the biggest thing. I don't like it when someone uses it to define themselves. Because at that point, I realize that the growth is handicapped in a box. It's never going to leave this box that you've now drawn around yourself. And I say that because I look at people as limitless potential, essentially. And anytime you do that, you're limiting yourself. And I think something that him and I speak big on, too, is self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency in the aspect of, I do believe a lot of people find it through religion, but self-sufficiency in the fact that you're not going to the drive-through in Walgreens every 2 weeks to get your prescription bottles filled. Self-sufficiency in the aspect of, you don't have to go to the system and be forever indebted to the system to live your life.
I can't believe it's so hard for people to understand that the society that we live in, where that is an option to somehow feel normal, going through a drive-through to go get prescriptions every 2 weeks, month, whatever.
Even a week sometimes.
People lived without any of that shit. People lived without birth control as well, and you hear women try to throw out the excuse of, it controls them because my cramps are just unbearable and all this. I have too much of a flow.
So
I'm sorry,
the
that's
women
not
for
true.
all of history, their cramps weren't bad, but yours are so bad that birth control is required. You're just gonna undo the billions of women that have been born before you without using birth control, and now all of a sudden it's on you to have to use it. I think it's more so a convenience. And I think they get the added benefit of, oh, I can sleep with guys and not get pregnant. You have to really consider that part. And that, I think, was something very damaging that was done to society. Because, I'm just going to say it, but one of the biggest things that would turn away women from having sex outside of wedlock, or let's say just outside of a committed relationship, was the fact that they'd get pregnant. And guess what? Back then, if you got pregnant, everyone knew about it. And not saying that it has to be this way, but you also would get shamed for it. You would get shamed for making the wrong decisions. Oh my gosh. It's crazy to think that your environment might give you some feedback to push you in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy that we're supposed to just turn our back on our family and the people who are supposed to provide provision for us and just listen to what people on social media are saying nowadays? I've always said it to you, but the people around us are the goalposts that keep you on track in life, and you need to listen to them, because if you don't, then you're going to end up with none of them in the future because they're going to leave your ass. And you're probably also going to turn into continue to be a terrible person or turn into even a worse one.
We're also amplifiers. Like, I would be an amplifier to you, and you would be an amplifier to me, and for everybody. Like, since I'm living in my own world, depending on how I treat you and how I treat you is how it's going to be outputted to everybody else. And like you said, the environment will then tell you, since you're being shamed for being pregnant, you probably should have made a better choice. But
you probably shouldn't have done something that you knew was a bad choice before you even got into it. You had preconceived knowledge that was going to be a bad choice.
You let the devil take over.
Now your environment confirms that, and you're mad that your environment's confirming it. And look around you today, a lot of people are mad that the environment's confirming exactly where they should be.
Yeah.
If you don't want to put in the hard work to improve or make your life better, then nobody's going to do it for you. That's my point.
Oh, you want to pause it? I got to take a piss.
Yeah.
I got pissed so bad.
For 53 minutes. Right.
So I wanted to bring this back. This was kind of when you first started talking about it, and you started talking about birth control and stuff. And I just wanted to make a side comment, like when you were talking about back in the day, that the birth pains and what makes it so that you're not able to do what they did, so now you need birth control, right? But then I was going to point out, I'm like, what is this? Okay, that you can't speak about that because you're not a woman. You know?
That's one of the biggest lies we've ever been told.
And that's just 100% one of the things that's preached nowadays, that you can't speak about it because it's not your body, or you're not a woman, it's my body, my choice, this and that. And when you're looking into that, it's literally enabling everybody. At the end of the day, it's enabling, and it's just choosing the easy path and the good path, and it's taking away difficulty from life, from what we were talking about previously. And those are the things that build characters and build strong women. And because imagine if a man didn't go through the trials and stuff that he did, I mean, you will eventually come up with a guy who can't provide for his family, can't take care, put food on the table, and know how to do the things that he should as a man when his son comes up to him or his daughter comes up to him. And the reason men can become as successful as they are is because they were put through trials and stuff. But when the world's preaching to you, saying that your input doesn't matter, or you shouldn't be able to tell me to do it, I think it's just all like enabling, and you're literally just making it okay to be sensitized, pretty much. Or yeah, pretty much, if that makes sense.
Well, we know from the Old Testament that Eve was the woman easily manipulated, and how it goes against religion is it's supposed, and most of these women will say that they're Christian, which really pisses me off because you can't just pick and choose certain things if you're going to say you're something. Because I don't, I've done a lot of my own due diligence and I have been through the book. I don't classify myself as somebody Christian, but I think that if you're going to say that you are something, you should probably do it because once you're married, you're unified. It's supposed to be one body and one spirit, which means that enabling bullshit needs to come to a stop.
It creates division between two people that are supposed to be united under God.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you're creating who's better and who should be doing this and who should be doing that, or who's belittled because they're doing this. But at the end of the day, I'm old school and I believe in traditional. You know, the woman should take care of the home and eventually take care of the kids and everything and take care of their husband too.
Yes.
And the husband needs to go out and be able to provide everything that they need to be able to do that. Whether it's a home, to make sure they have food in the fridge to cook, to be able to actually have children with them. And yeah, they both play different roles. Nowadays, what I believe it should be is that, you know, this is my personal belief, if you're just looking at a modern day household, I would be taking care of everything that has to do outside of the home, whether it would be taking care of the lawn, you know, something as small as taking out the trash. You know, I go out and I work my ass off to make sure that we have money, we have everything we need to pay for everything, so that she can have nice things. And I would think that my wife would want to make sure I'm fed and to make sure I'm taken care of and to make sure the house is clean, because the last thing a man wants is to be unorganized when he's at home.
The disturbance
You know?
of what should be his peace.
Yeah, literally. And that would be like the number one thing to throw everything off. And as a wife, you should really want your husband to need everything he needs to be successful, and to make sure that he's feeling respected, to make sure that he's feeling well rested, and that he has everything like good inside, and making sure that they're not the one disturbing that drive, I guess.
Make sure that that monster he's controlling is not uncontrolled or unhinged or
Yep.
breaking apart. Because I agree with that. I feel like most men would say that they want something like that. And I say that even about the losers, like the fat kids, because how they would picture that isn't how they would look.
Yeah.
They want to see themselves as somebody bigger and more masculine that could do something like that. But with women choosing to have these abortions, it shows their cards on what kind of person they are, considering that the first thing they will think about it is a curse rather than a blessing, which should tell you the pattern recognition of how they've interpreted every single thing that's happened
This
in
is
their
an
life.
inconvenience. Oh my gosh. Now I'm going to have to put my life plans on hold for a whole year.
Yep.
I mean, let's be honest. If you really don't want the baby, I'm sure someone out there probably would take it. Or someone, part of your family would too. But I hate this idea that men, you go do what you're supposed to do because you've been doing that since day one, but we're going to just go do our own thing over here. You can't have a successful society when half the population is doing what they're supposed to do and half the population is quite literally just lollygagging through life. And that's something that actually I also wanted to bring up too. I believe that something like the Bible gives you a good framework as to how to lead your life, because if you're not told how to lead, you can just do whatever you want. Especially in America, this is why I think we're kind of set up in a trap. We're taught to believe that you can just do whatever you want whenever you want, as long as it's not illegal. But that's not true, because I've told you this before. A lot of people, you're going to not want to believe this, but if you got to do whatever you wanted to do whenever you wanted to do it, you'll be homeless doing drugs under a bridge eventually. That's just how this stuff works out. And what I mean by that is that there's things in life that you want to do and there's things in life that you need to do. And what we have a lot of right now is people not doing enough of the things that they need to do and only choosing to do the things they want to do. And I had this thought one day living alone. I'm like, damn, I don't have to do the dishes. I don't have to sweep. I don't have to make my bed. But after doing that for a while, you start to look at yourself and not like the picture. And you have a choice. You can say, And this is kind of what we talk about. You can see the reflection. Life is just a reflection of your actions. So I believe people that get angry at it choose to be spiteful and stuff. But I'm sorry I'm getting off topic now. But
No, keep going. Cool.
yeah, I don't even know where I was really going with that. It just made me think of a few things. But I this is what I like to think about. I told you this the other day. Whenever you're experiencing difficulty or hardness in your life, remember all the difficult things and hard things that you had to get through, even to get to the point you're at now. And remember, you made it through every single one of those. Maybe good, maybe bad on some of them, but either way, you're still here today. That should give you enough confidence to know that you're going to make it past this one. That's the first step. But also going along with that, every single time you endure difficulty, you should look at it as another chisel being taken off of the sculpture that life is creating of you. And your actions and the choices that you make are going to directly decide what that sculpture looks like when it's done. Is it going to be a slab with its fat hanging out everywhere and looking disheveled, or is it going to be what we would look at in ancient Greek sculptures of a man? There's no way you can look at the sculpture of David and go, that's not a man. No, sculpture of David is like the epitome of man. And you can't get that unless you go through difficult moments in life. Unless you actively choose to go through the difficult moments and also simultaneously keep doing the things that you need to do. Go full circle here. We have a very large percentage of our population that's just straight up decided they're going to do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, and we've actively enabled them to get to that point now. And I think this is funny. The Bible talks about Eve basically, the way I understand it is Eve convinces Adam to bite the apple. Essentially, my point is, look at society right now. The things women are doing could not have been done unless they convinced men. Convinced might be. Women wouldn't be able to be doing what they're doing right now unless they convinced men, which they explicitly warned us not to do. And now we look at not even 50, no, actually, let's think about this. It would have been like 1960s. Think about 60, a little over 60 years post-feminism era, and what has came since then. I mean, I would say it's not a lot of good. I think it's literally our environment screaming back at us, this is not working. And we can't fully see it yet because we're in such a nice cushioned system. And also, too, let's just say this, some humans aren't as good as pattern recognition, so they can't see how their actions are going to play out 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future. Take that as a societal level. They don't even know where they're going. And you've said it, we didn't lose history, we're lost in history.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, it's just a weird feeling to cope with all of that.
Yeah. I don't know. I like how you do bring up, though, that it is supposed to be a structured thing, religion itself. And again, I think it's more internally. And I think that when it talks about having those small wins, yeah, it kind of does matter when you think about the serotonin level that's at rock bottom. If you're freaking homeless, you're going to want every dollar you can get, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to go for those smaller things is my point. Like, just comparing it to a human need at that point. But
that's a good way to put it. The what you're looking for is the smaller rather than
well, it's better to go up than keep going down.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you need to find that equilibrium and peace within yourself to feel more than happy. And a big part of that, in my opinion, is exactly what you're saying, is being into a traditional relationship where the man goes on conquest and has a warrior day doing dope shit with his friends, which is why you need to move out here. His address is in the description, but go burn his. No, but basically, I think that when you go home, the first thing that needs to really happen is have that peace of mind and have peace in general, because what man wants to come home to a combative woman who just wants to argue for her own entertainment? And a lot of that could be credited to not having kids, because now they're just scrolling through all this stuff, keeping up with the Kardashians.
It comes full circle. It's hard to believe, but all this stuff is tied at the hip eventually. It's all just one after another of it, cascading butterfly effect, essentially.
And they're more than happy to sit there and watch the future they wish they had.
Than actually actively help you attain that future with them.
Okay, hold on, pause. So you're just talking about wife and husband. You're saying the supporting wife, pretty much, is what you're talking about. I literally just had it. So, but the thing I think about too is that when you think about marriage, it's 100% voluntary. And at the end of the day, you guys do not need each other. And it's 100%, I'm going to take you and you're going to take me, and we're just going to go through life together and see what happens. Now, basic minds would just be like, so if a guy, like you said, is going out, busting ass, doing whatever he's doing to make sure his wife has everything that she needs and stuff like that, and she wants, but she's sitting there nagging at you, why aren't we spending this much time together, or why aren't we doing this, or why are you staying out too late, working and whatnot. I think basic minds would just be like, I don't need to be in this relationship at all, just because the man truthfully, and it can go both ways, that the woman doesn't need the man, but that marriage aspect, it's literally voluntary. So if a man's going to go out there and voluntarily go out and sacrifice his body and his mental health and everything, then the one thing that the women can do to contribute is to treat him with respect and to give him everything that he needs and stuff like that. Because I think it definitely sounds like we're being very hateful towards women, but to us, as we're saying it, we know everything that needs to be done as a man to do everything that we're already thinking of it, all the stuff that we go through on a day-to-day basis, and it's not easy, mentally or even physically. So we're not saying we're not doing anything, because it sounds like when I'm hearing myself talk or hearing you guys talk, because we just talk about what we want the girls to do, but it's just automatically registering to us the things that we have to do. But the guy, men are out there and busting ass every single day. For myself, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get to work by 6, and often, more times than not, I'm working after work 2. I get off at 2 and I work, in the hot sun and stuff like that. Same with you guys. You guys have a farm that you guys are working on. But these are all things, and what's going through our minds while we're doing that is our future and what we're trying to accomplish for our future wives. For me, I already have a wife, but for you guys, for your future plans and everything that you guys intend to do in the future. And it's not easy. Days where you have no motivation to do anything. It's like, why am I even doing this? Or why do I work this hard? And that temptation also just pulls you down. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
I think I also want to clear up what you're saying. I definitely I don't hate women. I love them a lot. Trust me.
Have you seen their boobs?
Nah, I think that psychologically they were manipulated to think that this is what other women actually wanted. I think this was more of a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. They put this fake women in the workforce thing because they couldn't tax half of the population without them in it. But I think what I'm saying is I was more so earlier talking about the women being more combative because of how society's structured. I think that the best thing that the women could do is get that fulfillment if the man's not home all the time from the kids. You've seen the videos of the father animal or just fathers in general playing too rough with their kids and the mom will go and attack. The mom's willing to attack the father for the offspring. Praying mantis, they will eat the father's head after the birth. Women are choosing to show you their interest without even having to say it. I think this is all
And they
a
have
brainwash.
ultimate freedom there, and they still choose to do those jobs, like you said, 95% of the time.
And it's hard to see what you could have when everything else is already in front of you. You don't have to work for something that doesn't exist yet, or you have to work for something that doesn't exist yet, or all these things right here, right now, convenient. I don't know about you guys, but when I want something, I'm going to the store and I'm going to grab it. I'm that kind of person. I
I'm
don't
the
like
same.
I don't like to wait. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
It's I also want to point out something too. We kind of sometimes get down a rabbit hole and we'll say women, 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 but also plenty of times we're saying men, 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 men needing to step up their damn game, and let's just say it as it is. Over 50% of men are obese.
Oh God, I think it's higher than
How?
that.
I've
Yeah,
thought
I would
about
definitely
this.
say way higher than that.
This is why we have a garden, and partly why we want to continue to do like more so local farming type stuff, is because how are you supposed to lead a strong and steadfast life if you aren't even eating the correct food?
Yeah.
You're not even eating food that comes from the area that you live in. You're eating processed slop that's just presented to you on a grocery store shelf or a gas station freezer, wherever it is. Just the fact that we have food in all these places shows you that something's not right. Because every other animal on Earth doesn't have food for shit, and a lot of animals starve. They're fighting every day to find their meals, and we just have them everywhere.
Yeah, and what's crazy though is that, I mean, the more and more time that goes by, it's getting even harder to eat those healthy meals because now it's more cheaper to even go out to eat.
Yeah.
And even when it is a healthy meal at a fast food place, that's a lot of calories in that healthy meal
Yeah.
still. And that's what it all boils down to in the first place, is your consumption of how many calories that you're taking.
Well, who determines what's called healthy? Because someone might say that diet pop is healthy because it's diet. Who determines? Like, it's just, again, it's nobody really sets the boundaries on these things. We're just told by some agency of the government, and we all just follow in line like bots.
I wanted to say why I was laughing earlier is because you were talking about the amount of food that we have in abundance in the first place, and it makes me laugh because oftentimes people go to McDonald's, bro, they sell 6 million burgers a day. You know how much all beef that is? That's a lot of meat throughout an entire year. Meat. That's crazy.
It's, I mean, it just goes to show you that it's hard to struggle with this idea of technology versus religion. Like, I guess, do you believe in, like, DNA sequencing and stuff?
What do you mean?
Like, do you believe that scientists really can take DNA from a crime scene and put it in these tests and figure out what person on the earth committed it?
I think so.
Do you think humans I guess where I'm trying to get with it is, do you think humans were ever supposed to know this much about the things around us? Do you think it's our destiny to eventually know everything that we ever possibly could know?
Probably not. I mean, there's already been stories about that. I mean, you've seen about like the Book of Enoch and stuff like that, which it's not a part of the Bible, but it was the fallen angels is what was also written in that book and stuff like that. So, God himself, when he casted down Lucifer out of heaven, he also casted down like 1/3 of all the angels and stuff like that who were siding with Lucifer and stuff like that. And there were angels that were sent down to earth. And apparently, these angels were teaching the humans and stuff like that stuff that they should not know. And that's where they're saying, you know, potentially there's where these pyramids and stuff came from. So they were teaching them stuff beyond of what humans should actually know. And God did not like that, because humans are only supposed to know so much. But what did I say? Yeah, it was even going so far that these fallen angels were teaching these people how to create weapons, how to take animals and like breed them and stuff like that, and like create what they said in the Bible was abominations and stuff like that. And they were just really corrupting the world and just giving all these humans and stuff like that like the terrible things that they need, and just furthering sin.
Well, this
pretty much.
predates the Bible. This is older than the Bible.
Yeah.
And this is Old Testament stuff.
Mhm.
And do you know much about the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Can't say I remember much about it.
That's a story that's also written by the Sumerians with this was on their like stone carvings. They had this thing of the Epic of Gilgamesh where it talked about a deity basically putting down some God, what was he? He was some type of like ox human kind of thing, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but basically he summoned them down there to meet a woman, fall in love with her, and take over what was going on with the current ruler, because he was abusing all of his power. And it actually turned out that they turned out to be good friends, and as the story goes on, he winds up having to sacrifice or lose his Gilgamesh and devastated the king or something like that. But I don't know, I was just asking to see if you knew anything about it, if it was in any way, shape, or form religiously put there as well, because they do talk about a great flood. Maybe it's just the Sumerians putting it
Well,
out
I mean,
there.
like I said, that did link up to the time, because they were talking about in Genesis, when they were talking about the Great Flood, that how corrupt the world was, and that the Nephilim was on the earth too, which were like the giants back then and stuff like that, and all the stuff that they were doing and creating all these abominations and stuff like that, and God decided to wipe everything. So I'm sure that they were talking about the Great Flood, the one with Noah.
I mean, maybe they were the reemergence of what could have been who survived the catastrophic event of what we were initially talking about a while ago.
The Younger Dryas.
How long did you want to go?
We can cut it, or we can do like 5 more minutes to 1:30 or something.
It's hard to find a stopping point once you get us clicking, you know.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could just say, like, wrapping up statements or whatever.
Well, again, I want to point out, since we were talking about women's and boobs, since we were talking about...
I'm an ass guy.
I want to point out the ass. Give me the ass. And we're live,
You see
actually.
me over here? Oh, yeah, yes, that's nice.
Yeah, I see that.
Really
Makes a
thinking
good
about
point.
Oh, yeah. I say that.
Makes a good point. Well, I never really thought about that aspect.
I, again, want to emphasize that I am not saying I'm against religion whatsoever. I wrestle with that idea in my head often, but I do my research on trying to understand what I can. And I think that religion is important for people to try to get into. And I would start with Old Testament because the amount of thinking that it requires you to have to do is absolutely insane. And I think that there's more that you could learn from this book than not, because it's better to admit that you've walked through the wrong door than to stay in the wrong room forever and just dismiss everything that these people who were highly intelligent, having the pyramids be the example of how sophisticated these people were, making things that we cannot replicate, to look past the iPhone apps that they give you, the social media, like those things normally wouldn't cost money. Don't you think it's pretty weird that they just give you this device with all this free stuff to keep you entertained as well? Life is worth living, and I hope that people find their guidance in making the right choices and not walking into the wrong room.
You know, as you were talking, I just really thought about something.
I
That-
love you too. I knew it.
What'd you say?
I love you too.
Oh, I love you
knew
too,
it.
man. No, but you were just talking about. I know we're trying to wrap this up,
Very good.
but about pyramids and cell phones. I just thought it was crazy that nowadays, when we look at it, the pyramids are like one of the biggest mysteries to humankind. But say everything got wiped, and we'll say 1,000 years go by, and then a new civilization came. But something that they still had from us would be this guy right here, the cell phone.
What is it? Where is it? I don't see it.
Go cut that. The same thing with this guy right here, a cell phone. That they would look at it, they'd be like, "What the heck is this?" And like, how the heck do they do that? Like, what in the world? They'd crack it open, see all these little small gadgets and stuff like that. I feel like it's the same thing with the pyramids. I mean, I don't think we'll ever probably figure it out. Just like they'll probably never figure out how somebody had came up with this and built that. I mean, everything would just be so much shifted and so much changed.
Well, there's been a certain group been around long enough to know some information.
Well, I'll say this. Without any guidance in life, life would be very chaotic. Things are just happening maybe to you. You don't understand why they're happening. You don't understand other people and what their characterizations could be. You don't understand really anything other than your work, basically. And I think the reason why the Bible resonates with so many people is because it was one of the first times that people figured out that there is a framework to which you could live your life to have a high success rate. Not a guaranteed success rate, because you could die at any moment, but a high success rate of leading what I would say, nothing short of a great life, and also being able to look back on it and be very grateful of all the things that you were able to do while you were here. I think the Bible was one of the first, if not best, kind of characterizations of the things that you would need to do to get to that point in life. And I guess my last thing I'll say is, if ever you're enduring difficulty, just be grateful that it's happening to you, because I have this mindset right now that not necessarily bad, hard things happen to people because you can choose to see it for a lesson, or you can choose to be angry that it happened in the first place, but you can't do both.
Yep.
So I always look forward to the lessons now. And those lessons are slowly chiseling away.
Shaping.
All it's doing is sculpting.
So please like and subscribe to the video. Also, we gotta make sure.
Oh, let me do my outro.
wait a
Outro.
Oh, remember this. If you
Oh,
were looking
damn.
at something like the sculpture of David, in basically the perfection of the human male body, I'll say, you can't get that if you're working with things that look like pudding. If you're working with things that are like pudding and are easy going and blah blah blah, you're gonna look like pudding in the end. You need hard difficulty in order to live that. And I don't even think it needs to be the physical embodiment. It can be the sort of the mindset that you lead through life. Because we all look different. But I don't know, I guess that's all I'll say about that.
I guess I'll touch on my final saying. You guys touch base on the Bible and stuff like that, so I agree with both what you guys say. It's a
However,
good-
you're horribly
a good-
wrong. You're horribly
However, it is a great way to live your life by, and for a guide to shape your life. But I believe that it was through the wisdom that God gave these people who wrote it is how it was formed. And I 100% believe that Jesus Christ was that God in human form. And I personally don't believe in religion. I believe in a relationship with Jesus. And because religion, when I think of it, I think of other ones that are bounding you into this certain group to exclude everything else but what's within your confined circle, and to do as much good as you can to possibly make it into your next point after you pass on from here. But the Bible preaches nothing of that besides that we are all sinful people, and our only true Savior is through Jesus. And it was talking about difficulty. If we weren't meant to suffer and go through difficult stuff, Jesus would not have done it himself. I mean, he went through the most excruciating, difficult stuff that we all could have been, and people look at him as if he was the best person who ever walked this earth. I mean, that should just tell you on what happens when you go through difficulty and you go through hardships and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I'll say.
I hope that whoever made it this far found this more helpful than hurtful, because I can assure you that there is no bad morality hopefully being fed to anybody, and if there is, you're not listening. So
You're choosing to be angry.
thank you.